We broke into the ERB studios. Here right now.
Yep, we're back at the ERBcast, and now ERB has lent us the studio, as you can see from the background. But yeah, now that we're here actually to go ahead and discuss something, a strange thing to actually bring up now that we're returning for it to get more episodes out. But, between you and I, Red, this is something that's really one of the weirdest, dumbest, most annoying arguments to make if you're in the ERB fandom for so long, you actually know what I mean. But you don't know what this topic is about, actually, do you?
No, this is unbeknownst to me. Actually, it's this took me by surprise.
No, this is actually I'm also going unprepared, but I've said this so many times, brought up so many points about it that it's really just second nature for me to go against it. But yeah, this is referring to the Hitler argument that ERB fans like to make regarding how they can use certain vile figures in ERB, or this bad guy, he's possible to be an ERB. Why? Because Hitler was in one. Stalin was in one. They used Genghis Khan. The worst argument you can really make. At least the subreddit, for as flawed as it is, the subreddit will shut people down who go like that. But you really have to get into the nuance, the details as to what can make that argument look flawed in comparison to just saying, hey, Jeffrey Dahmer should be in one. Why is Hitler in this, but Jeffrey Dahmer can't be? Why can't Andrew Tate be in one? Why can't Osama bin Laden? Osama was a different thing, but let's be honest, no one is really asking for Osama nowadays. He kind of passed anyway for you to care.
Yeah, generally it's really hypocritical, and it's a bit odd to kind of use these figures as a way to justify their means, justify any of these other people. Can you really classify them as historical? Because they're not. They didn't really contribute anything to society, let alone just be notorious for the sake of being notorious, and they're known from that way.
Well, usually what you just said about how they don't contribute to society, it's pretty much true. Really, what has Andrew Tate actually done that makes you think, yeah, Andrew Tate actually is someone who will be in the history books? Hitler is very notably in the history books, and for actual reasons. They're all notorious reasons. I'm not saying at all that it deserved to happen, but we know ever since Hitler has been in power, he's obviously been lampooned, spoofed, parodied, even by Mel Brooks, the legend. He directly used Hitler as his own punching bag for comedy. So really that's really something that ERB shouldn't just consider Hitler's a little too controversial. No, he's been used as a parody for comedic figures since he actually got notoriety in history. So realistically, it makes sense that they did him right at the second battle. In fact, I want to keep trying to work on the series where I'm explaining each ERB, how they really came to be and what the references are for each one. But the Darth Vader versus Hitler, I will include the part of a video where Peter talks about how he's getting too many Hitler matchups. Right at the second battle of the series, right after John Lennon versus Bill O'Reilly, he talks about how there's enough Hitler matchups and they already decided on one. It's something like that. So you can tell, their fans immediately went to Hitler, not just because he's notorious. He was very much meme for a while, because if you've been on the internet long enough, you know about the Hitler rants about Hitler reacts to because of the Downfall movie, which I really liked as a meme. It's not liking the meme is going to make you Hitler sympathizer or whatever. That's stupid. But rather just the fact that he is in general spoofed even after the early days of the internet on YouTube. And he's been around for so long of that. Now, I know it's gotten controversial on the fact that the rise of neo-Nazis in the United States especially, but really the fact that they already went with Hitler on the second episode just because they knew that they were getting so many requests and Darth Vader was the perfect matchup to them, that really shows more than anything, it's that, they know it can work, and that during that time it wasn't going to be seen as controversial. And even now, I don't see a reason to actually consider it controversial. They did it very well in a way that, as our friend Silfrix had actually said, Hitler was always just a man-child, and he was portrayed as just being someone angry, enraged. It's not going to come off as Hitler is being glorified in this rap battle. No, he's really not. They never really bring up anything about what he did as actions for being a brag or being to boost himself up. It's not like that. It was entirely dissed. So to me, I would say it's a little weird to still make it out to be an argument, in the sense that, no, they obviously didn't even do that how you think it came to be. So in that manner, that Hitler has so many contributions to governments, world politics and all, there's a lot of things to him that's not just the one factor that you would immediately assume with him. Yes, he was the most evil man and he was the most famous dictator basically, but he still is a huge historical figure, and this is a series that put history in the name. Now, obviously, history will cover a wide range of subjects, and they already know that, but for them to get Hitler so early on kind of shows, yeah, we know that this was one of the more requested people ever, the early days of the series. So they just went ahead and did it. So if they're going to be able to do that because Hitler is very known in history, then how can you say, oh, Andrew Tate, he's going to be known in history? No, he won't. He's already been forgotten. So yeah, that's really my stance on this whole thing. That's why the Hitler argument deserves to be debunked, because of that.
Yeah, and there's a reason why I essentially was a no-brainer for them to choose on. So I don't know. I wouldn't really imagine it any other way. If they ever, went the route of putting Hitler against a vile figure, not only would it give it a horrible outlook on not only both of the figures being used, but doing vile matchups for the sake of doing vile matchups. There wouldn't be any sort of comedic value out of using two vile figures that nobody would otherwise root for. Hence why Vader was the biggest fictional character they could ever use, and very smartly so. Hell, you know what though? There's even the argument that, oh yeah, ERB is not really too keen on using pop culture figures, but there's a reason why they use one of the most popular, one of the most beloved. I mean, probably for the wrong reasons. I mean, yeah, he's a pretty vile in his own universe, but albeit tame in a more fantasy way because of Star Wars. But Vader was obviously going to be a no-brainer. He's like one of the biggest fictional characters in all existence in pop culture, history. Star Wars is ingrained in history without even a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. Vader was easily the smartest decision way to go. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason why they made 3 full episodes of it, is because they had so much material to them. So maybe some semi-comparisons to them, realistic comparisons, but I mean, otherwise, no. I think that doing one of the biggest fictional villains in pop culture history, versus one of the most notorious figures in humanity history, for lack of better words. I mean, he did kind of contribute even in a most abhorrent way, but despite that, though, it's a perfect match, and I wouldn't have objected to it otherwise. Mm-hmm. And people who use Hitler as an argument are the same people who also want Hitler versus Stalin, which is it's bewildering to me though, because no, there's no way they're ever gonna fucking do that.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure it'll even make Peter a little bit uncomfortable just by the figment of a thought. Mm-hmm. So yeah. That's my sense.
And to your 3 points you made, because first of all, Star Wars is very much historical. Like without Star Wars, the landscape of blockbuster movies would be entirely different. Would not be nearly as fleshed out as it currently is. So there's that. But there's also the fact that Hitler versus Stalin, as you said, that people are still wanting that. People are still saying, like, how about you do Hitler versus Stalin? Or, guys, they should have done Stalin against Hitler. Like, what? Seriously? But not only that, the other thing is just that in real life, Hitler versus Stalin happened. It's not really interesting. Might as well be Hitler versus Churchill. But, in that case, it's like a curb stomp. But now Hitler versus Stalin. Oh, okay, well, now it's just two dictators who kind of just... How are you going to feel about, either side of them? They'd pretty much even be hypocritical on how they diss each other on what they did, because, it's not like they did one thing that the other didn't. Like, there's very few things, but in the general sense, it's just going to be feeling like, two vile figures, but they're just pretty much in similar fashion. At least with, as you said, with Vader's comparisons with Hitler, it actually is from the fact that the Empire is based on the Nazis in real life. So that's what Lucas actually had planned for when he did.
That makes sense.
Yeah, when he did the Star Wars, that's why he also brought up the Stormtrooper line, because they are actually based on the Stormtroopers in real life. But yeah, as everything, we're really talking about this, whenever ERB uses vile figures, they're always against either fictional characters that you can prefer, or they're against someone else who you can kind of feel more safe in seeing, like, yeah, that's the person that I'd definitely go for in between them as a fight. Because if you look at the Russian battle, 4 of the 5 are actually vile figures. Like, Rasputin is kind of debatable. Like, he was a villain in Anastasia, I believe. But Rasputin is kind of in the sense of being controversial. Like, are you really rooting for Rasputin? Because, apart from being the first rapper, he's not really too much of a, powerful figure like the others. But he also could feel uncomfortable with Stalin, Lenin. And later, Putin, aged badly in how they used him. But then there's Gorbachev. Gorbachev brings the levity in that battle. He's the one, hyped up part of the battle where they used him as a figure. He basically provided the comedy that they needed for a rap battle. So imagine the Russian battle without Gorbachev. Imagine if it was like Khrushchev. Like, yeah, okay, he actually would have fit, but he also would be rather just serious, like talking about other Cold War stuff. Now, Gorbachev is another Cold War figure, but he was actually a lot more of the hope that people were looking for with the tensions between the US and Russia. So I feel like the Russian battle, for as flawed as I saw Gorbachev's verse, he was a really good addition as to what they went with on the lineup. The other ones were considered like, could be seen as evil, could be seen as like a little off-putting to like feel that there's any comedy between them given who they are. But it's not like I'm saying like, oh, it's really bad that they use Rasputin and Lenin. Like, I don't really care much for it. But Gorbachev brought something else. And that's what they usually always say that they need in contrast. Confirm that that's really what they look for. They need to make sure that one is not as nearly serious and, feels like a downer for the mood of the battle. Because if you look at Rick Grimes versus Walter White, Walter is very different as a character. But that's because Rick was portrayed to be more of a pouty or serious figure, like where he's acting a bit more tragic as to what he does to fight zombies or walkers for a living. Walter could have easily also been portrayed similar to that because he does have those serious moments in the series, more of a drama more than anything. But he also he has his moments where he does do goofy things and the actions can be seen as like very overwhelming to someone like him. But, to us, the audience, it is entertaining. So they made Walter more exaggeratingly evil, egotistical, full of himself. Now, it doesn't feel like it meshes too much with Walter as a character, like portrayed accurately, but it does work for the sake of the battle because there you have to have someone more upbeat against Rick, who's really more downbeat, I would say. So in that sense, like, imagine if you're getting two villains and they're both like trying to kind of one up each other, but it's not really coming off as really comedic because they're both just like talk about who killed more or just like something like that. So in that sense, the Hitler argument really falls flat and like, oh, imagine that these two dictators, like, imagine if it was Hitler versus Francisco Franco instead. No, that wouldn't really be entertaining nearly as much. Vader very much just like has this sense of, acting cool because you can kind of see him as a great villain in movie history, obviously, but he actually has the more serious role in contrast to Hitler, who's very shouty, very, very aggressive towards him. He's obviously coming off as very, very immature in the sense that, he's just trying to get the upper hand on Vader, but then each battle had ended with Vader getting the last word.
You know what, though? I actually wanted to point out, make an additional statement that it's also evident in the writing that they mostly favor. I mean, they're well aware that Hitler's a fucking evil dude.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so is Vader, but I mean, they obviously, you can tell, by the writing that they're clearly favoring one over the other, that they much prefer this figure over that one. So people won't have to worry about it. It shows in the writing and not just in portrayals, but you can easily tell the writing does make a difference, believe it or not.
Exactly. But not only that, it's not like they're purposely giving it so bad of a time with, oh, this figure's going to lose. No, he'll lose, but he'll get some good hits and like to be memorable at least. Like, look at Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos, no one really likes as a person, but that doesn't mean that even if he'll very much lose because Matsumoto is just that much better, he still did get some good amount of lines that you can actually say, I'm glad that they used him as the matchup, because some people were a little weird on, but Bezos is actually a bad figure because he's a CEO who allowed his employees to get hurt or killed. I get that, but at the same time, it's like, that's kind of just a standard with ERB. They will use figures that even with their current image of how they are, that doesn't mean that they can't be parodied. But then if you get someone where it's Jeffrey Dahmer and all he did was, I'm not going to even say it, you should know. But yeah, in that sense, you're not going to really feel great in seeing him portrayed. And the other thing I will bring up just now, but he shouldn't be in one because he's very much recent. Like, his victims are still around. Like, people still feel about what he did. And that's why, the Netflix series was very controversial, but that's a whole other thing. That's a different media, really. It's just a matter of, like, Jack the Ripper was used in ERB. But Jack the Ripper was over 100 years ago. You're not really going to bat an eye from that. They know how to make him work because at that point, he wasn't just like some figure that you could actually see as like, oh no, he actually didn't contribute anything. You know what he actually did? Him basically being like what you think of as the first historically significant serial killer got a lot of police investigations and how people run searching for these types of killers. Like, a lot of that is based on the Jack the Ripper case. It's still being studied to this day, but no one's really thinking like, Jack the Ripper, I can't really see him in any media. No, there's been enough media that portrayed him because he's such an unknown figure, like he has no identity. So I think that's where you can really have your mind like eased with the fact that they're just portraying him comically. It's fine. That battle did have a darker tone, but they knew to use him with Hannibal Lecter, a fictional serial killer, because that's how the dynamic would work. Like, now you're not feeling like, weird because it's Jack the Killer versus Ted Bundy. Like, yeah, that would actually be uncomfortable. But Hannibal Lecter made it work, and now it's one of their most beloved battles. I'd say for good reason. I'm not too huge on it, but I do like how it turned out.
You said Jack the Killer, by the way.
Fuck me. But yeah, I'm not cutting that out. Let's leave it there. Okay, but yeah, moving on to other things.
Anyway,
you had any other points to bring up?
Oh yeah, I did have something to say. You see, even listen, Jack the Ripper definitely warranted, though. I wouldn't see why he wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's to the point where the dude kind of debated now. I mean, currently that he's also, was he really a real person, or was he an urban legend? So he's kind of a little bit of a conflicting interest there.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on how you ask somebody, though. I mean, hell, even his name by himself alone, Jack the Ripper, you must have heard that somewhere else. It's even been in countless amounts of media and pop culture. So just his name alone is enough to garner interest. Like, why would he not be used?
Yeah, because it's sort of like very blending in that sense. I think like media that you were talking about, like I'm thinking of Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper. That was an actual thing. I think it was a game or something like that. But yeah, it's sort of like the sense that if you're using these types of figures, they have to be someone that you can actually make a case for an ERB that it wouldn't really feel too off. Because I know ERB's kind of like past these maybe being edgy, but really I can't tell because sometimes Peter's like, ooh, this person was into fascism, we may use that. I don't know. It's also weird because like that came right after Henry Ford. Like it's gonna sound a little repetitive, but seriously, like say Mussolini has his name in the history books as well. We don't mind them using Mussolini. Like he's very much historically significant and he's fine to really use. But then someone else who's like just for the sake of like using them because they're also pretty known and they used Hitler. Let's get the Columbine shooters in one. No, that just sounds really distasteful. You can't make an actual comedic rap battle out of that. So you have to really keep that in mind. Like you can't just like say whoever, because I also heard this before, something similar, not exactly the same argument, very different territory, but still same path in the subreddit where someone said like they used Skrillex back then, anyone could work now. But in that sense, like anyone is famous currently, like anyone is on the news. You can't just be like, they use Skrillex, might as well use anyone. Just use this actor, A-list star. They really have to have like things that define them as a figure that make them worth using.
Easily. I even think there'll be enough representation. So I would think Jack the Ripper is enough to, fill that void of serial killers. Which, you know what though? This reminds me of this one occurrence where I was pointing out to somebody who's not exactly the brightest from the tree. Let me just say that. It's one you and I have dealt with, by the way. This guy, I gave him a bunch of pinpoints as to say why they're not comfortable using serial killers. They even outright said it. It's on the wiki. It's everywhere, though. They fucking said it on multiple occasions that they're not comfortable using real-life killers.
Yeah.
So I just said this just to see if I can enlighten somebody, which, I mean, you can't really enlighten ERB, to be fair. You can never do that, ever. They're the weirdest breed and the worst toxic degeneracy, but that's neither here nor there. So I gave him all these logical points. He hits me back with the response of, get out of your comfort zone. Get out of my comfort zone, huh? Okay. I'm speaking for them, for something that they've stated on their stance. I'm bringing up their stance. This stupid fuck decides to hit me with, get out of my comfort zone. Oh yeah, just get out of your comfort zone, bro. Don't worry about it. ERB would definitely use John Wayne Gacy in one. Just get out of your comfort zone. You won't be bothered by it. It's just a rap battle, bro. There's a reason why fan made channels use those type of, they delve into that territory because, let's be honest, I mean, I know the rap battle community is extensive and it's gargantuan every single bit. But there's no way that, I don't see ERBP or anybody else, anybody that's used a real life killer getting under fire just because they use them. But ERB would. They definitely would get some sort of backlash as to, hey, why the fuck are you using these people, man? Why the fuck are you doing this? They're going to get that one way or another. And they can't justify why either. I mean, they can't just, oh yeah, we did it for the sake of just, entertainment. Isn't that not enough? So you can't parody something that's so realistic that it just will not mesh well with their format. It just does not fucking work that way. It just doesn't.
Or realistic and recent in the case that as John Wayne Gacy, I really wouldn't want to imagine that. They've had their stance before. Yeah, they said it a couple times. One was a live stream, but I don't think that live stream is still up. I don't know why they took off their live stream, sadly, but look, the sense
they privated them.
Yeah, the sense that they were fine with Jack versus Hannibal being the serial killer battle they can make. I think everyone's okay with that. Like, there's no need for more. And really, I can understand that they wanted to make it because during the time the rap battle community was growing at a good rate, that the fan made the family rap battle channels were getting known and they were using creepypasta characters. So I get that they were like, if we want to use serial killers, you know, Jack the Ripper is the most known one that's historically significant. Hannibal Lecter would work under that. I think they said that, like, they confirmed it on the wiki or somewhere that they were going to go ahead with it. I don't think their fans had a problem with it. But yeah, they really did want to test the waters out with how it would work out, and it turned out fantastically. Dan Bull, his first verse was actually just a demo, which is a very interesting fact to me. But I do like how they managed to integrate that without like coming off as it'll be offensive, because really it's not like they need anyone else. Like, what else can another serial killer say that really has to be said? I know the Zodiac Killer still requested around, but yeah, I don't think people are going to be comfortable because of that case. So yeah, all in all, the only other thing that I think is worth bringing up is just not just modern figures in that they happened several decades ago and they're still victims of it, but also Trump. Like, I'll just say it outright, Trump. They used him in the sense that he is very known for a lot of things now. Like, as a businessman, yeah, he was in ERB first because of that. He was a real estate businessman and had his own TV show. But then he got used because he was presidential candidate, and then turned president. So yeah, they had to use him a couple more times. And yeah, he did have a lot of significant material that it did last for 2 battles. I guess that was enough to be warranted. But here's the kicker for me in what can really define that line. They used Trump both times knowing about his sexual assault allegations that he had, because they had Hillary reference to the grab him by the pussy line. They had Joe Biden start out with how he was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. They did all that because they knew in media the parodies of Trump were going to bash him for that. And there's really no other way around it. They were going to use him and bring that up. And really, it's warranted because this is a man who has so much to him that those things about what he did is really just a minor amount of what is known about him. Like, there's so much shit about him. Now, compare that to just, like, you know, any other, like, I don't know, school shooter, serial killer. Like, well, all they did was just that. They really didn't have anything else, any notable impact to, like, the world as a whole. It's just this case that they were wanting attention for. Trump is just, like, the case of him, like, running for president, really turning the world on its head as to how politicians could act and get away with things. Like, there's a lot of things. Like, he's also pretty much a war criminal. That's, like, I don't even need to explain that. But they still could use Trump because in the end, it's all parody, but it's the type that anyone is fine with. Like, SNL obviously takes a lot of shots at Trump. So really, there's nothing that says Trump is on the same level of, like, not being used. Like, no, he was going to get it anyway, obviously. The other thing that is kind of a debate currently is just the fact that Vince McMahon is, even though he was requested very much against P.T. Barnum, that was really one of the most requested matchups in the comment section, but now he's got the case of him having sex trafficking, which, you know, it's a horrendous look. And he's also a big CEO, and he has a lot of things. He's the embodiment of WWE. Now, could he still work it in a rap battle? To me, I personally say yes, but I think we're kind of not going into the... Yeah, it's not really worth trying to discuss over currently. We'll have to see if it manages to pan out later on. But it's not like, you know, Vince McMahon just did this one thing and now anything about him is rather invalid. No, he still could work because Trump was very much used even after what was known about him, what he did. So really, it will depend. Like, there's a lot of iffy issues, but this is kind of a case-by-case basis. You can't just, like, say, well, Hitler's been used. We can get this guy in. You should be fine with that. It's really not how it works. Really, there's a lot of logistics on it, and I just figured it'd be worth it to try kind of putting it together, getting our thoughts on it, like seeing if anyone else is interested on discussing it. Really, it's not just so simple that you can call it a black and white issue. At that point, it's more like, well, this person could work if there's been enough parodies of them. And I'd say that definitely fits for how ERB is. Like, say, actually earlier today, I just watched the South Park episode with Jeff Bezos. And like I said, earlier I mentioned Jeff Bezos, like, yeah, you can consider him a terrible CEO that actually, you know, endangered his employees. Yeah, it's all that, I understand. But at the same time, you really just see him as the richest guy in the world at one point, who's the founder of Amazon and many other things that he's known for in the public eye. So really, it would work for ERB's format, something like that. Something where it's John Wayne Gacy, and oh man, there's so much shit. I'm not going to point out what he did because this video is probably going to get even worse on what we're talking about. But yeah, let's just leave it there. It's really like you have to really understand, and it's kind of bothersome when people just don't, like, they don't want to think.
It's also, you can't really, I mean, I don't think talking about how many victims they slaughtered or how much they vandalized people is not appropriate. I mean, Jack the Ripper did it, but those victims are long gone and deceased. So they're fucking ghosts now. Especially in the case of Lloyd or Peter portraying them, is not exactly something that we feel comfortable with either.
Yeah.
I would imagine, because they're going to have to talk about that material that they did. You can't work around that. They're notorious for it. So, no, man, no. No, that's just inappropriate.
Yeah, it's like they were really just doing it for that attention. And really, as you said, Peter and Lloyd could have their reasons to not want to do it. And that's exactly what happened with the short of John Wilkes Booth versus Lee Harvey Oswald. Now, I think this is like the worst mainstream matchup. Like, it should not still be getting attention. And some people really justify it like, no, all you can really say about them is I killed this president and that's it. What else? Booth was a failed actor, okay, but do you really care? You like his acting career, and that it's not even a movie acting career. So like, what do you know about the plays that he did? I really don't care about them. Like, all they did was shoot someone who was a world leader. Now, that world leader, I don't know why JFK still isn't in one. Him against Mandela would be really great, but like, use the person who he shot instead of the person who, they just shot, and that's really it. Like, at best you can say with Oswald that there's a conspiracy theory with JFK, but that's bigger than he is then. He's just like a piece of that puzzle, and he's not even like, he doesn't have anything else that really had an actual major change in society because of him. He just did one thing on that day, then everything else in history just played out. But really, all he did was shoot Kennedy, and that's it. What else can you say about that, really?
Can't exactly parody a tragic event either. It's because that took the world by storm in the most devastating way possible. That's
not just that.
That's just completely saddening.
Yeah, and not just that, but like a major thing about him, like just as a single person, is like he's obviously mentally deranged, and I think he was like a veteran. But man, I don't really see why you'd want to kind of diss something like that, So especially in modern times where he's like, how can you really get around that to make it comedic, to like actually fit in the current format that they're doing? They're actually like stretching these out. Like, I don't like too much that they're getting too long, but they are fine when they manage to get enough material for the rappers, like Ford versus Marx, obviously. How can you do that with Booth versus Oswald? You really can't. And I think that's very much their point. Like, Peter was really shooting himself in the foot to say, like, oh, they feel like just such dicks. But yeah, that really opened the can of worms in the comment section. But really, you have to understand, this is where the Hitler argument pretty much ties back to. Like, it's not just the matter of like, oh, well, they're evil and they should be fine because you use Hitler. No. Did they actually have anything else besides the vile action right there? Like, Hitler at least had a major influence on governments as a whole, even before any of World War II. Like, there was a lot of discussion regarding how he is as a leader. And then everything else happened, and World War II is now one of the most significant events ever. So really, there's so much material to him as a figure in history, which is what the series strives to be about. But then if you're saying like, well, the guys who shot these people, they could work, right? They both shot the same type of leader. Well, in that case, then you're talking about a figure that's bigger than they are, and you're not really caring about them as a whole. You're caring more about how they just in one fateful day managed to do it and make a rap battle out of that. No, that's really not how it works. And Lloyd even at least has a good reasoning for that. It sounds like it would work for, maybe some middle school project, but for a rap battle of their caliber, no, it wouldn't.
Yeah, he had the right incentive mind, and Peter elaborated a lot more than he should have. He was really. I mean, he kind of made his point, evident enough, and I don't understand why he decided to. Well, you know what? They're just assholes. I don't want them in my series. Like, okay, yeah, we kind of. We were kind of under the impression that you never did. You're bound to get a flame war in the comments, which it did.
Yeah, because a few shorts later, then he's like, I don't know if he was changing his stance because of that, because that's actually now the most viewed short, sadly, that they have. But then, with Andrew Tate, he was like, oh man, this makes me actually interested in using him. Like, oh, please, no. But we already mentioned Tate enough in this episode, relating to there's nothing significant about him that'll go down in history, and his place in pop culture, it's really uncomfortable. Like, have you seen what he's charged with? Like, yeah, I'm not going to go into detail on that, but that's why he really shouldn't just be in one. It's not like Vince McMahon, as I said, because McMahon actually has a lot of him. Tate just has this stupid Sigma cult and nothing else. Like, can you really be interested in that?
Oh
At least McMahon
boy.
has, like, decades of material from WWE, but then he'll get shut on even more from the case that he has. But yeah, that's really the difference. It's just a matter of like, could they do McMahon? I believe yes, and that's really up to them if they really want to keep this series going. I don't even know what the current plans are. But then anyone else, if it's Andrew Tate, if it's Jeffrey Dahmer, if it's John Wayne Gacy, all that I don't want at all. And we already laid out for the past, I don't know, 40 minutes or so on why that would fail.
Yeah, Tate's the secondary. Well, I don't know who the fuck and their team decided to thought that was funny. Is I did not find that funny. I really didn't.
Yeah,
And the fact
plus,
that Peter semi approved of it though without any sort of acknowledgement. Lloyd was culture enough to at least put the stamp on it and said, "No, fuck this motherfucker." Really is what he said. Like, oh my god,
yeah,
I wish when they were a lot more stern with shit. I miss that shit a lot. I really do.
yeah. I think Lloyd said
Uh,
something like, Andrew Tate's gonna like be forgotten, and he's not gonna really contribute much to the annals of history in the long run. Because they've said before they want the more timeless figures in the series, like who can really be memorable for a rap battle that you could actually go back to and find it worth it. And yeah, Andrew Tate is obviously not that. So yeah, that's pretty much how it'll be. I really think that's like as much as we could get to the argument. I know there probably could be some people to point out holes in it. We're definitely free to debate on that, but it's a matter of like you have to really get to it. And if you really just kind of dismiss it as they use Hitler, anyone's free game, please just don't. I already gave enough to why it shouldn't be that way. I'm not going to really point out too much to who it is, but one person I did invite from being in the you decide of an epic rap battle of history did actually say that Hitler argument. If Hitler was in one, I would think they could. And even though they said at first, oh, I get that, like when we explained that, they still went back and kind of justified the same argument, even though they were already like understanding of why we weren't interested. So yeah, it's like, I'd hope something like this episode could at least get someone to understand, as to where we're coming from for that argument really getting out of here. Like, I don't want to hear it again.
And this is mostly just for ERB in particular. I mean, the fan made channels could really do whatever they want. As I just said, they're not really going to go under fire if they use any of these vile figures. So, because they're more than free willing to do that stuff. It's free real estate for those guys. So, it's not that big of an issue because it sounds like, I mean, again, no offense to any of the fan made channels, but it sounds like there's bound to be anybody that's going to complain. Maybe there has been, but it sounds like it's that significant enough for them to want to shit on those guys just for using them.
Yeah.
So, but ERB in particular is the biggest. Obviously the fucking. Really the biggest one of the food chain. So
yeah,
they're bound to get some sort of negative reception if they were to pull this type of shit, and they're well aware that they're not comfortable doing it, they don't want to do it. They said it on several occasions, again out of their own mouth, that they're not comfortable, they don't want to do it. I think people should just be a lot more accepting of it. Passing them on about it is not going to really alter your results. It's too bad. You can keep asking them, they're just going to keep saying no. So
and they really don't need it. Like right now, the series is on live support as it is. Imagine like, oh, we should just go with it, even though it's controversial. Like, oh no, they're kind of gonna die out right there, and like I can see that being possible. The other thing of the matter is, ERB is really just the huge entity in this whole type of niche genre. And any other person who's a fan-made battle, like, they'll just do what they want, whatever's coming at them, they'll have to handle if they want to, because they're really just independent creators, basically. But, it's up to them if they want to handle that type of thing and see what other people think of it. Obviously, we're here to do it more on ERP's side than any other fan-made channel, so that's really what it gets to. On a final note, we just want really to make sure that if there's someone being used, it's actually like worth the significance in history, their place in history and all, which is, as I said, Mussolini versus Emperor Nero. That would be fine. That's definitely what they could strive for to make it good. I don't know why the fuck they said Mussolini versus Captain America in a short. Like, good lord, that's a curb stomp. Nero is at least enough of a controversial figure in history, 400 AD or whatever it was. No, from 40 AD, I think. That it can turn out very well. So that's what I'd say would warrant it. So anyone else where it's like, all they did was this one bad thing that is really kind of disgusting to have to try to turn into a comedic rap battle. So that's really what we're kind of basically talking against, because like, if you really think Jeffrey Dahmer versus Jeffrey Epstein sounds funny, like, no, just get out of here. Like, we don't really want that.
You could argue, well, this is just for stupid rap battles for fun, right, guys? Sorry, yeah, maybe it is, but we just don't really work that way.
Yeah, the
Sorry.
thing is, each installment is now coming at such a slow pace, like just 1, 2, maybe at most now a year, that I really don't want to waste it on some figure that will cause so much trouble in the comments that they could just like, kind of lose it on getting their progress for the next one. So yeah, I'd say right now, more than anything, they have to really be careful on as to what they're deciding on, and hopefully it actually gets them back running up again. But yeah, the future is right now undetermined.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I guess my final point is, well, not really a final point, but it's mostly just something to address. If you just say, oh, I don't really give a fuck about what they do. Oh, I don't care about what they do. I'm like, okay, you're not really helping the issue. You're kind of enabling that behavior.
And yeah, there's more sensible people who we're friends with, really. Like, they'll always try to check things for rap battles, and mostly ERB, of course, but, in general. Like, it should be more in an objective lens rather than just subjective. Like, oh, well, I'll be fine with it, then anyone else should be fine with it. No, in that sense, it's going to look a little selfish. So I would say if you're at least saying I would be fine with it, but I can get why others wouldn't be, so I do understand that point, then yeah, then you'll come off as actually understanding where we're coming from, And a few of our friends are just fine with whatever. They're fine with any ERB installment as it comes, but that doesn't mean that they're just going to say, nah, you should also be fine with it if we're fine with it. No, it doesn't really work that way. It should be more of a matter of like, yeah, I can get why this wouldn't work out for them in the sense that I would be fine, but then many of their nearly 15 million subscribers would not be fine with it. So yeah, that's really how you should be actually considering things if you want to, understand where this would really cause a type of conflict between them as creators and us as the viewers.
Which I think the viewers have luckily not enough of a say. Which, I mean, hey, they never have much input nowadays. They have the Patreon. It's
a shame, yeah. But that's really it. That's all that we could explain for the argument. Maybe we missed a few. Maybe there's something worth pointing out in the comments if you want to say anything. You and I experiencing so much of that often, people saying it, I mean, yeah, pretty much leaves us as experts on the topic because we can understand really where we can say our type of argument for this whole video.
That's right. I think people should at least listen to this more often. I mean, whatever, you can just ignore us too and, call us stupid or whatever, but, go right ahead. I kind of don't care if you do or not, but good luck with that. Or you're just going to be shut down, so watch out.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, so usually the people who do that, yeah, they have that edgy type of humor, and we're not into it.
Yeah, that's not for us. So at the very least, at least understand where we're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, ERB has had an edge to their humor, but it's not like pure edgy humor. It's just like humor that had edge. There's really a difference. And if you're wanting to go further than that, and that comfort zone comment, as you said, really, that's not going to turn out very well.
I mean, hey, listen, if Genghis Khan could wield his sword like a penis to the Easter Bunny, anything is possible at this point. But that's neither here nor there. In the words of the Easter Bunny, just keep the peaceful, homeboy. Jesus. Yeah. So, just take advice from the Easter Bunny. Yeah, but that's all we can really stand on the topic. Well, more than likely see you guys whenever we see you guys.
Yep.
We broke into the studio just for the sake of authenticity, so hopefully you don't arrest us, but hey.
Of course. That'll be it for now then.
That's right.